The chamber of the Galactic Council was silent. Billions of stars shone through the great crystal dome, casting long shadows across the amphitheater where the galaxy's most powerful leaders had gathered. Alien diplomats sat in rows, their bodies glittering with jewels, scales, and metallic hides. Their voices, once loud and proud, now hushed to uneasy whispers. The silence broke with one sentence. A trembling envoy, his tendrils shaking, spoke in a voice that cracked across the hall. "Humanity is the apex." The words rippled like lightning. Claws scraped across metal desks. Mandibles clicked in agitation. Some laughed in disbelief, their voices harsh. Others shifted in fear, as though the phrase itself carried poison. The great warlord of the core bellowed, "Impossible. Humanity is young. A backwater world clinging to its one fragile planet. How can they be apex?" Yet others did not laugh. They remembered stories. Whispers rose. The Velen archivist leaned forward, projecting glowing records into the air. Ancient holograms of human battles lit the chamber. Images of Earth's soldiers fighting to the last breath. A lone frigate holding against impossible odds. A human fleet appearing from nowhere, striking with precision and fury. "Look at their record," the archivist said. "No other species adapts like them. They suffer, they bleed, but they rise again stronger." "It is not myth, it is pattern," murmurs swelled. One alien elder hissed. "They are predators who do not know how to stop," another countered. "They are protectors, not predators. Yet in protection, they become unstoppable." The chamber grew restless, filled with doubt and fear, but the truth could not be ignored. Far away, on the dark edge of council space, the human warship Dauntless cut through the void. Her hull gleamed silver black, her cannons silent yet waiting, like the fangs of a predator hidden in shadows. On her bridge stood Lieutenant Sarah Connor, her eyes fixed on the stars. Her crew moved with practiced silence around her. Every gesture was precise, every breath steady. They were not explorers today, they were hunters. Connor tapped a command. A holographic map shimmered before her, showing council fleets gathering, watching, testing. She could almost hear their whispers. Fragile humans. Weak Earth, not apex. Her lips curved into the faintest smile. They had no idea. Back in the council chamber, the debate turned into chaos. One faction shouted for humanity's exile. Another argued to bring Earth into the council, before fear turned to war. Others demanded proof. Where is their strength? A crimson-skinned general sneered. If humanity is truly apex, then let them show it. Do not hide behind whispers and myths. The chamber fell into silence again as a new hologram flickered into life. Every alien I fixed upon it. Its sleek frame dwarfed the standard council cruisers. Its weapons ports glowed faintly, a reminder of hidden firepower. The envoy, who had spoken before, trembled. They do not hide. They are already here. Gasps spread like wildfire. On the Dauntless, alarms began to pulse. Connor straightened. "Report," she said, her voice calm. "Distress signal, Lieutenant. Council core worlds are under threat. The Gorv armada is moving." The words sent a chill through the bridge. The Gorv were legends of destruction raiders who burned civilizations until nothing remained. No one had ever stood against them for long. Connor's jaw tightened. Set course. Maximum burn. We'll answer the call. Her officers exchanged wary looks. To challenge the Gorv armada was suicide. But Sarah Connor's gaze did not waver. "Humanity does not wait for death to come," she said. "We meet it head on." In the council chamber, a deafening roar filled the hall as the news broke. The Gorv were coming. Thousands of ships, bristling with weapons, charging straight for the council's heart. Panic spread among the delegates. Some demanded surrender. Others ordered fleets to scatter and hide. And then, another hologram appeared, the Dauntless again. Its engines burning bright, cutting across space faster than any alien warship had ever dared. A single human ship moving directly toward the storm. "Madness," one alien hissed. "Courage," another whispered. On her bridge, Connor turned to her crew. The silence was heavy, filled with unspoken fear. "This is the moment," she told them. "The galaxy watches. They think us weak. They think us prey. Today we show them the truth." The crew straightened. Fear was still there, but behind it. Fire. The dauntless hurtled toward destiny. Back in the council chamber, one delegate, pale and trembling, leaned close to his companion. "If the humans survive this, then perhaps the whispers are true." His companion nodded slowly, eyes locked on the glowing human warship streaking across the stars. "If they survive, then humanity is not only apex. Humanity will rule the galaxy." The screen flickered, alarms blaring across the council chamber as the Gorv armada appeared in full view. Rows upon rows of warships stretched into infinity, their engines glowing like the eyes of beasts. Entire civilizations had burned before this fleet, yet one human ship, the Dauntless, flew directly into their path. The chamber fell silent once more. Every alien leader holding their breath. Would humanity's warship be crushed like all the others? Or would the whispers become reality? As the alien council watched in awe, the Dauntless activated its weapons. Cannons powered, shields flared, and a single message echoed across every channel in the galaxy. Humanity does not fear. Humanity fights. The screen cut to black. The void was silent. But silence in space was never peace. The Gorv armada emerged from hyperspace like a tidal wave of steel. Thousands of warships spread across the stars, their angular frames glowing with crimson engines. Whole fleets had been erased by these monsters. Entire civilizations turned to Ashdod. Now their sights were set on the councils. Alien watchers across the galaxy shuddered. On countless worlds, broadcasts carried the same grim image, a wall of Gorv destroyers blotting out the stars. Panic spread. Some worlds ordered evacuations. Others sealed their gates, hoping the storm would pass them by. The Galactic Council debated in circles, their voices breaking with fear. None dared speak of resistance. None except one. On the bridge of the Dauntless, Lieutenant Sarah Connor stood tall. The human warship, sleek and deadly, burned forward alone. To the Gorv, it looked like Prey One, fragile vessel rushing to meet extinction. But to Sarah and her crew, it was destiny. "Status," Sarah said calmly. "Shields at full. Weapons armed." "Engines pushing maximum burn," her tactical officer replied. Her eyes narrowed at the sight of the Gorv wall. "They outnumber us 100 to 1. They expect us to break. They expect us to run." She leaned closer to the star map, her lips curling into a razor-thin smile. "They don't understand humanity." The council chamber echoed with disbelief. Images of the Dauntless streamed in. "They're insane." Azel Noble shrieked, his tendrils quivering. "No ship can stand against the Gorv armada," a corps general hissed. "They'll be slaughtered." But the Velen archivist raised a trembling claw. Or perhaps they will not. Every eye turned to the projection of the Dauntless. Alien leaders leaned forward, their bodies tense. The whispers spread again. Humanity. Apex. On board the Gorv flagship, Warlord Krax watched with a predator's grin. His armor gleamed, his tusks scarred from centuries of slaughter. "Humans dare face us with one ship. Fools. Prepare the net. Crush them." The Gorv armada shifted, forming a killing pattern. Ships spread wide, engines burning, weapons glowing. They were ready to tear the human vessel apart, but Sarah Connor's eyes glimmered with calculation. She wasn't flying into a trap. She was building one. "Helm," Sarah ordered, her voice steady. "Bring us closer. Do not waver." Her crew exchanged nervous looks, but not one hesitated. Fingers danced over controls, the great warship surging ahead. The Gorv ships closed in. Energy cannons charged, plasma cores humming with lethal promise. "On my mark," Sarah said softly. "Lieutenant," her second officer whispered. "If we fire now, we'll give away our plan." Sarah's gaze hardened. "That's the point. Let them think they know what we'll do." Humanity never plays by the rules. Across the galaxy, Alien crowds held their breath. Entire populations sat frozen, eyes locked on the broadcast. A human ship was flying into the jaws of the most feared fleet in history. No other species had ever dared. For the aliens watching, it looked like madness. For the humans aboard the Dauntless, was survival. And survival was something humanity had mastered. The Gorv flagship loomed larger, its cannons locked on target. Cracks roared. Fire! The void exploded in blinding light. Beams of plasma streaked across space, hammering into the Dauntless. Shields flared, buckled, screamed under the onslaught. Metal groaned, alarms blared, sparks erupted across consoles. Shields dropping to 60%, cried the tactical officer. Hold the line, Sarah barked. The Gorv thought victory was seconds away, but Sarah had been waiting. Now she commanded. The Dauntless spun with impossible precision. Diving straight into the Gorv formation, hidden ports opened along her hull. Dozens of mines and drones launched, scattering like fireflies into the enemy fleet. The Gorv, trained to overwhelm, pressed forward blindly. They didn't notice the trap until it was too late. One by one, the drones ignited. Blinding bursts of plasma and EMP fields ripped through the armada, frying systems, tearing holes, breaking formation. Alien spectators gasped. For the first time in memory, the Gorv wall cracked. Sarah's crew erupted into action. Target their crippled flank. Cannons ready? Fire everything. The Dauntless unleashed hell. Alien worlds watching could not believe their eyes. The tiny human ship, against thousands, was tearing holes in the legendary armada. Gorv destroyers spun helplessly, flames pouring from ruptured hulls. Their perfect formation shattered under human ingenuity. The whispers grew louder across the galaxy. Apex predators. No one fights like them, in the council chamber. The crimson-skinned general who had mocked humanity fell silent, his mouth hanging open. Even he could not deny what his eyes showed. On the Gorv flagship, Warlord Krax roared in fury. How? His tusks ground together as another of his ships detonated before him. They are not prey. They fight like demons. Sarah Connor's voice cut cold over the coms. You thought we were weak? You thought we would kneel? Humanity kneels to no one. Her crew shouted in unison, their voices shaking the bridge. Humanity fights. But victory was far from secure. As the Gorv armada staggered, new signals flashed across the Dauntless's sensors. Not all Gorv ships had fallen for the trap. The survivors regrouped, their fury redoubled. Lieutenant, her officer warned, they're forming a secondary line. Reinforcements incoming. We can't hold forever. Sarah stared at the endless red lights filling her screen. The trap had worked, but only for the first strike. The Gorv still had overwhelming numbers. Her heart pounded. She knew this battle was only the beginning. And then, a new signal pierced the noise. A faint, desperate cry for help. Distress beacon detected, her officer said, his face pale. Sarah leaned in. Origin. The screen shifted, revealing the world of Illyria. Once lush and thriving, now choked in fire and ruin, the swarm infestation had awakened. Sarah's breath caught. The Gorv were not the only threat. With the Gorv still regrouping and the Dauntless damaged, new horror loomed on the horizon. The swarm was rising. Sarah's voice cut like steel. Signal Admiral Varian. Tell him this war isn't over. It's only just begun. The screen cut to black. The galaxy held its breath. Across countless worlds. Citizens stared at their holoscreens. The Gorv armada filled the skies with crimson engines burning like rivers of fire. It was not a fleet. It was a storm of war, sweeping forward to erase everything in its path. Entire empires had already fallen to them. Civilizations reduced to ashes. The Alien Council knew this truth. No one had ever stopped the Gorv once they committed to a strike. And yet, against the storm, one ship moved. The Dauntless. On the bridge. Lieutenant Sarah Connor stood at the center platform, her face lit by the glow of tactical screens. Around her, the crew worked in silence, hearts pounding. hand steady. The ship's engines roared, pushing the human warship directly toward the wall of Gorv destroyers. "Lieutenant," her officer whispered, "we're flying into a death trap." Connor didn't blink. Her gaze locked on the stars ahead. "They don't know it yet," she said coldly, "but so are they." Inside the council chamber, alien leaders shouted over one another. Madness. They'll be crushed in seconds. No species could survive this. Yet none of them looked away. Every eye, every claw, every tendril remained fixed on the glowing projection of the dauntless. The whispers spread like a contagion. Apex predators. Humans do not yield. On the Gorv flagship, Warlord Crack sneered, his tusks flashing as he leaned toward the holomap. "One ship dares to face my armada. End them. Show the galaxy what happens to prey who pretend to be hunters." The Gorv fleet shifted formation, spreading wide like the jaws of a beast preparing to bite. Thousands of cannons warmed, plasma cores glowing bright, but Sarah Connor had studied this predator, and she knew where to strike. "Helm, maintain course," she ordered, her voice calm. "Weapons." Hold. Her crew tensed. The dauntless pushed closer, her sleek hull cutting through the dark. The Gorv ships grew larger, their weapons now within range. "Lieutenant," the tactical officer urged. "If we wait any longer," Sarah's eyes narrowed. "Patience. Let them believe they've already won." The Gorv warlord slammed his claw. Fire. Space erupted in blinding fire. Plasma beams thundered into the dauntless. Shields screamed, consoles sparked, metal groaned, shields at 70%. "Engines holding." Sarah's voice cut through the chaos like a blade. Now, the dauntless spun with sudden fury. Hidden ports along her hull burst open. Drones and mines shot out like a storm of glowing sparks. Scattering through the Gorv formation, the enemy pressed forward blindly. Eager for the kill, then the mines detonated. Shockwaves ripped through the armada. EMP bursts fried systems. Plasma warheads tore open holes. Ships collided as formations collapsed. Gasps echoed across the galaxy. The legendary Gorv, armada unbeatable for centuries, was cracking under the assault of a single human warship. "Target their flank," Sarah shouted. "Cannons ready. Fire." The dauntless unleashed plasma fire, carving through crippled destroyers. Human precision turned chaos into slaughter. One by one, Gorv ships became burning wrecks drifting in the void. Alien spectators could not believe their eyes. This is impossible. No fleet has ever. It's them. The humans. The whispers grew louder. Apex. Predators. Humanity fights. On the Gorv flagship, Warlord Cracks bellowed in rage. "They tricked us. They fight like demons." His officers trembled. No prey had ever struck them this way. For the first time, the Gorv armada felt fear. But the battle was far from won. New signals flashed across the Dauntless's screens. Reinforcements, Gorv cruisers streaming in from hyperspace. Survivors regrouping into a second wall. "Lieutenant," her officer warned, "their numbers are endless. We can't hold forever." Sarah's jaw tightened. She knew. This was only round one. Then another signal cut through the noise. A faint, broken distress call. "Origin," Sarah demanded. The holo shifted. A new image appeared. Illyria. Once a shining world of spires and forests, now burning, covered in black clouds. The swarm had awakened. Her crew fell silent. Even hardened soldiers felt the chill. The Gorv were a terror, but the swarm was worse. Sarah closed her eyes for 1 second. Then she straightened. Her voice was steady, steel-hard. "Signal Admiral Varian," she ordered. "Tell him we'll hold the line here. But the swarm? The swarm must be stopped." The galaxy watched in awe as the Dauntless battled on against impossible odds. But far away, another horror arose. The swarm spread across Illyria like a living plague. Humanity had won the first strike. But the true war was only beginning. The skies of Illyria burned, once a jewel of the galaxy. The planet had been a beacon of crystal towers and emerald forests. Now it was a graveyard of smoke and ruin. Great cities lay in smoldering heaps, their spires melted into blackened skeletons. The air trembled with a constant hum, the sound of the swarm. Billions of insectoid creatures covered the land like a living ocean. They tore through steel and flesh with equal hunger, leaving nothing but ash and bone. Illyria was dying and the galaxy knew it. The Council received fragments of desperate broadcast shouts, screams, then static. Entire colonies vanished in hours. Even the Gorv, feared destroyers of empires, had avoided the swarm. To face them was unthinkable, but humans did not think like others. On the Dauntless, alarms flared red dot. Lieutenant Sarah Connor stood at the command table, her jaw tight, her eyes locked on the burning planet. Status of Illyria? She demanded. Her officer replied, voice grim. Resistance pockets still alive. Civilians scattered, but the swarm controls 90% of the surface. Connor clenched her fist. The Gorv armada still prowled nearby, regrouping after their first defeat. Yet the distress beacon from Illyria screamed louder in her ears than any threat of warships. Admiral Varian has sent orders, her comms officer said. We're to lead the strike on Illyria, establish a foothold, show the galaxy the swarm can bleed. The crew stiffened. Everyone knew what that meant. This was no ordinary fight. This was hell itself. Connor stepped onto the deck, her voice cutting through the tension. Our ancestors crossed oceans with only the stars to guide them, she said. They faced storms, hunger, and death, and still they carved a future. Now we must do the same. We will not defeat the swarm with brute force. We will outthink them. We will adapt, and we will win. The crew's fear hardened into fire. On the surface of Illyria, shadows fell. Metallic pods streaked down from orbit like meteors, tearing through clouds of ash. They smashed into ruined plazas. Bursting open to release human soldiers in gleaming armor, Commander Jacob Reed led the strike force. His boots crunched on blackened stone as he scanned the ruined horizon. His rifle hummed in his grip, ready for what lurked in the haze. Squad form perimeter, he barked. The humans moved with precision, their suits shielding them from the toxic air. From the rubble, gaunt alien survivors emerged Illyrian fighters, their once bright eyes hollow with exhaustion. They clutched battered weapons, yet when they saw the humans, hope flickered in their gaze. Reed switched on his translator. His voice carried with iron weight. You are not alone. Together, we strike at the heart of this beast. The survivors straightened, their fear mixing with awe. No one had ever dared to speak of fighting back against the swarm until now. The ground shook. A shriek pierced the smoke as the swarm arrived. Skittering forms crawled over broken towers, their jagged claws glinting. Hundreds of them, eyes glowing like coals, mandibles gnashing. Contact, Reed roared. Lasers blazed. Explosives thundered. Human firepower lit the ruins like a second sun. The Illyrians, fueled by human defiance, joined the assault. Together, they cut swaths through the monsters. But the swarm was endless. For every creature that fell, two more burst from the shadows. Lieutenant Connor Reed called through static. We're outnumbered 10-1. On the Dauntless, Connor's face was carved from stone. She stared at the battlefield feed, her hands steady on the console. Hold, she said. You'll have support. The Dauntless doesn't abandon her children. Orbital fire rained from above. The Dauntless unleashed precision strikes, beams carving into swarm hives. Explosions ripped across the ground, shockwaves blasting the invaders into shards. Smoke curled skyward, but still the swarm surged. Reed's squad fought with ferocity, their rifles glowing white-hot, armor scorched and dented. The Illyrians matched their fire, emboldened by the humans who stood shoulder to shoulder with them, even as casualties mounted. Reed's voice rang like a hammer. We adapt. We overcome. We never yield. His soldiers roared in reply, their battle cry echoing through the ruins. Hours dragged like years. The strike force bled, but they did not break. And then, amid the chaos, Reed saw something. A patch of faintly glowing plants nestled in the rubble. Their stalks shimmered with a strange blue light, pulsing like veins. He froze. Memory sparking, xenobiology reports had spoken of this. The needle grass. Deadly to the swarm. He knelt, armored fingers brushing the delicate fronds. His heart thundered. This could be their weapon. He activated his cum. Lieutenant Connor, we found it. The key to breaking them. Her voice crackled back, steady even through the storm. Then harvest it. Whatever it takes. The swarm felt the threat. They screamed as if one mind, surging toward Reed's squad in a living wave. Skittering nightmares slammed against barricades, their claws sparking off steel. Cover the collectors. Reed shouted. Bullets and lasers shredded the first line. Explosions tore through the second. But the swarm did not stop. They crashed forward, claws raking, mandibles snapping. Reed's voice thundered above the chaos. We don't lose to these bastards today. Hold the line. His squad fought like wolves in a corner, their fury magnified by desperation. Human firepower carved a path, Illyrian grit sealed the gaps. Together, they pushed the monsters back just long enough to gather the plants. The survivors looked at Reed with awe. Humanity had not fled. Humanity had not broken. Humanity had found a way. But victory was not yet in their grasp. Above the planet, the Dauntless shuddered as Gorv reinforcements appeared, drawn to the chaos. Sarah Connor's screens lit with new contacts. Hundreds more red markers filling the void. The crew stared at her. Fear tightening their throats, Lieutenant, her officer whispered. We can't face both the swarm and the Gorv. Connor's gaze hardened. She looked at the burning planet below, at the desperate fight her soldiers waged. At the stars now crawling with enemy warships, her voice was low, but filled with fire. Then we'll show the galaxy what it means when humanity fights on two fronts. The broadcast spread across the stars. One human ship, one scattered army. Holding against two impossible enemies at once. Alien leaders trembled as they whispered the forbidden truth. This is why we fear them. This is why they are apex. The ruins of Illyria groaned like a dying world. Black smoke coiled through shattered towers. The ground pulsed beneath armored boots. The swarm was everywhere, skittering claws on stone, shrieks echoing through ash. A tide of death pushing against the thin human line, in the middle of it all, knelt Commander Jacob Reed. His armored fingers traced the glowing stalks of needlegrass, the strange bioluminescent plant buried in rubble. Its light shimmered faintly blue, defiant against the dark. This is it, Reed whispered, eyes narrowing. Their weaknesses, Private Hernandez crouched beside him, face pale behind his visor. Sir, we can't hold them off long enough to use it, Reed's jaw clenched. Around them, Illyrian survivors and human soldiers fought shoulder to shoulder, firing into the endless swarm. Screams and plasma fire drowned the sky. We don't need long, Reed said. His voice cut through the chaos like steel. We need courage. On the Dauntless, Lieutenant Sarah Connor watched the ground feed. Her eyes burned as she saw Reed's squad fighting with desperation. Blood and smoke staining the ruins. Tactical report, she demanded. Swarm units converging on Reed's position. Gorv warships closing in from orbit. We're outnumbered everywhere, Lieutenant. Connor's expression was grim. And yet, she said softly, they hold. Her voice rose, cutting across the bridge. Humanity doesn't wait for miracles. We make them. Ready the orbital cannons? Keep Reed's squad alive. Alive whatever it takes. Her crew straightened. No one doubted. They were dauntless. On the ground, the plan took shape. Collect every stock you can, Reed ordered. Stuff it into their spawning pools. Choke them with it. Illyrian fighters exchanged wary glances. For centuries, their people had fled from the swarm. Now, these humans. These strangers were telling them to poison the hive itself, but when they looked into Reed's eye steady, unyielding, they felt something stir. Something they had not felt in generations. Hope. Together, humans and Illyrians tore needle grass from the soil. They bound it in packs, carried it on their backs, pressed forward toward the writhing biomass hives that pulsed in the ruins. The swarm sensed the threat. A shriek split the air. Nightmarish forms surged forward larger than tanks, their armored carapaces glinting like obsidian. Their claws gouged stone as they thundered toward the strike force. Here they come, Hernandez shouted. Then make them regret it. Reed roared. The battle ignited. Lasers screamed. Explosions tore streets apart. Human rifles fired with mechanical precision, carving holes into the swarm's tide. Illyrian blades flashed, striking in perfect rhythm beside human fire. The line bent, broke, then reformed again and again. Reed stood in the center, his rifle cutting monsters down with every burst. Hold, cover the collectors. Push them back. The fight was savage. Claws raked armor, blood splattered, smoke and fire choked the air. But step by step, the strike force moved forward, dragging needle grass into the hive. They reached the pulsing biomass, a grotesque living mound that shivered and throbbed like a heart. The stench of rot clung to it. Do it, Reed ordered. Hernandez and two Illyrians shoved the glowing plants into the biomass. The reaction was instant. The hive convulsed, shrieking as if alive. Smoke poured from it, the swarm nearby stumbling in confusion. It's working, Hernandez cried, above the planet. The dauntless fired. Plasma lances ripped through the skies, hammering swarm clusters that threatened Reed's position. Beams carved burning scars across the land, the shock waves flattening wave after wave of enemies. On the bridge, Connor's knuckles tightened on the command rail. Sweat trickled down her temple, but her voice never wavered. More power to forward batteries? Time every strike. If Reed falters, we all fall. Her officers obeyed without hesitation. The dauntless howled like a beast, raining fire and fury down upon Illyria. The swarm regrouped. From the shadows crawled larger horrors, their wings black against the red sky. Their screeches rattled the ruins as they dove toward Reed's squad. Air units incoming. Someone shouted. Reed looked up, eyes blazing. He raised his rifle and shouted into Comes Connor, now. The heavens answered. Orbital cannons thundered, shredding the sky with lances of plasma. The flying swarm erupted in flames, burning wings spiraling to the ground. Reed's squad cheered, their voices hoarse but fierce. Humanity's defiance was fire, and it spread to every ally who heard it. But victory demanded blood. One by one, soldiers fell. A human dragged an Illyrian to safety, only to be ripped apart seconds later. Illyrians shielded humans with their bodies, their sacrifice carving paths forward. Each death was a spark, each scream a vow. And still they pushed, feeding needle grass into hive after hive. Smoke and rot filled the air as the swarm shrieked, staggering under the poison. Keep going, Reed shouted. His voice cut through the grief, the exhaustion. We adapt. We overcome. We never yield. His squad roared the words back, their battle cry echoing like thunder. The ground shook violently in the distance. The largest hive split open, a monstrous shape clawing its way free. A creature larger than buildings, its shell glistening black, its eyes burning like suns. The swarm had unleashed its apex. The Illyrians gasped in horror. No one can face that. Reed's jaw tightened. His rifle clicked empty, but he didn't falter. Then it's time to prove them wrong. On the dauntless, Connor's screens lit red with new warnings. Lieutenant. Massive signature detected. A Queen-class swarm just emerged. It's heading straight for Reed's position. Connor's chest tightened. For one breath, silence filled her mind. Then she looked at her crew, her eyes blazing with defiance. Prepare all batteries. Divert everything we have. If we don't hold Illyria now, we never will. Her crew froze, stunned by the order. "Lieutenant, that will cripple the ship." Connor slammed her fist on the rail. "Do it. Humanity fights." The broadcast cut across the galaxy. The image burned into every alien mind. A single human squad, standing against a monster that blotted out the ruins. A single human ship burning itself alive to hold the skies and across the stars. Whispers turned to fear. This is why we fear them. Humanity does not surrender. Humanity gambles everything and wins. The screen cut to black. The ground of Illyria shook like the heartbeat of a dying world. Commander Jacob. Reed braced his squad against the shattered ruins as the Swarm Queen rose before them. It towered above blackened spires, its armored shell gleaming in sickly light, mandibles clashing like thunder. The monster's roar shook dust from broken towers. The humans fired everything they had. Plasma bolts scorched its hide, rockets blasted its carapace. But the Queen only shrieked louder, forcing them back with waves of smaller creatures. "Hold the line," Reed roared. His voice was hoarse, his armor cracked, but his eyes blazed with fire. "We stop it here." His words ignited human and Illyrian hearts alike. They did not run. They did not kneel. They fought. But above them, the dauntless shuddered. Lieutenant Sarah Connor stood on her bridge as alarms screamed. The ship groaned under Gorv fire, its shields glowing white-hot from constant bombardment. The swarm below and the Gorv above, two nightmares crushing at once. "Lieutenant, our power cells are bleeding out." Her chief engineer shouted. "We'll lose the guns if we keep this up." Connor's jaw tightened. "If we stop firing, Reed's squad dies. And if Reed's squad dies, Illyria falls." Her eyes swept across her crew faces pale. Uniforms scorched, hands blistered from consoles overheating. She lifted her chin, her voice steady as iron. "Then we bleed with her. Divert everything to the forward batteries." Humanity fights to the last breath. The crew straightened. They did not argue. They obeyed. The dauntless screamed defiance. Cannons thundered, ripping Gorv cruisers into burning wrecks. Plasma lances tore through swarm nests on the ground, giving Reed precious seconds to rally his squad. The warship fought like a beast cornered, every strike a roar of fury, but the cost was brutal. Hull plates buckled, fires spread, systems collapsed. Connor gripped the rail, refusing to flinch as smoke filled her lungs. "We will not yield," she whispered. And then the stars shifted. From hyperspace, sleek silhouettes burst into viewships of alien design, their hulls shimmering like crystal and steel. The insignia of the Valyrian Confederacy glowed bright on their flanks. The bridge of the Dauntless froze in shock. Valyrian fleet. Her officer stammered. "Admiral Sith has arrived." Before Sarah could answer, calm, melodic voice filled the comms, resonating with quiet power. "Lieutenant Connor, humanity does not stand alone. We fight with you." Cheers erupted across the Dauntless. The crew roared, their voices cutting through fear like a storm. Connor's throat tightened, but she forced her voice strong. "Your aid is welcome, Admiral." Together, we pushed them back. The Valyrian ships moved with elegance, weaving between Gorv cruisers like dancers of war. Their energy beams sliced through enemy formations, disrupting swarm communication signals. The once perfect hive mind faltered, confusion rippling through the creatures. On the ground, Reed looked up in awe as the sky lit with streaks of blue and silver fire. "Valyrians," Hernandez gasped. Reed's lips curved into a grin. "Looks like the cavalry's here." The tide turned. Human ferocity and Valyrian precision blended into a storm of destruction. Gorv cruisers exploded, their wreckage scattering like sparks. Swarm units on the ground flailed as their hive links shattered, turning the once coordinated tide into chaotic beasts. Reed seized the moment. "Push forward. Aim for the hive core." His soldiers surged, Illyrians beside them, each step carving deeper into the Queen's domain. Plasma fire burned bright, blades cut clean, grenades thundered. For the first time, the swarm recoiled. But victory came at a cost. Illyrian survivors fell in droves. Human marines dropped one by one, their blood mixing with ash. Above, Valyrian ships exploded in brilliant flashes. Sacrifice etched into the void. Connor watched every detonation, every casualty. Her chest burned, her throat ached. But she stood firm. "To those we've lost," she said, voice echoing through cums, "we honor you with triumph." Her crew answered with a single thunderous cry for humanity and allies. The Queen shrieked in fury as Reed's strike force reached its heart. Glowing needlegrass was hurled into her spawning pools, smoke and poison spreading through the hive. The Queen thrashed wildly, her screeches rattling every broken tower. Reed raised his rifle, his squad beside him. "Now, focus fire." The Queen reeled under the storm of human and Alarian fire. Mandibles cracked, carapace split, ichor sprayed in rivers. With a final roar, the beast collapsed into the ruins. Shaking Illyria to its core, the battlefield fell silent. For one breath, it seemed over. Reed collapsed to one knee. Exhausted, bloodied, his squad battered but alive. Illyrian survivors wept openly, clutching one another. Across the stars, aliens watching the broadcast whispered in awe. The humans. They did it. They broke the swarm. They are apex. But Sarah Connor's eyes narrowed. Her sensors still blared. Her instincts screamed. The Dauntless was wounded. The Valyrians had bled. Reed's squad was broken and scattered, and then new contacts lit the star map. Not Gorv, not Swarm, something darker. "Lieutenant," her officer whispered, pale as death. "We're detecting unknown signatures." Coming from the abyss beyond mapped space, Connor's heart thundered. She had seen many horrors, but this was different. She turned slowly, her gaze cold, her voice sharp as steel. "Signal all fleets. Tell Admiral Sith. Tell every ally." Her eyes locked on the void. A greater enemy is coming. The galaxy celebrated humanity's victory on Illyria. Songs rose, flags waved, allies rallied. But in the shadows of the void, a new presence stirred. Something vast. Something ancient. Something that even the swarm had fled from. And Sarah Connor's voice echoed across the stars. "This war is not finished. Humanity stands at the edge of something far worse." The screen cut to black. The galaxy celebrated from the burning ruins of Illyria to the distant halls of the Council. Voices rose in awe. Humanity had faced the swarm, something no species had ever dared on one. The Council broadcast replayed the footage endlessly, a human squad standing over the carcass of the Swarm Queen, the Dauntless glowing against a shattered Gorv armada. Valyrian allies at their side, for the first time in centuries. Alien leaders whispered words they had never spoken before. Perhaps the humans are not prey. Perhaps they are apex. But as banners rose and songs filled the void, Sarah Connor did not celebrate. She stood at the command rail of the Dauntless, her gaze fixed on the endless stars. Her crew cheered faintly behind her, but her eyes stayed hard. Because she knew what the sensors had shown her. Victory on Illyria was not the end. It was only the beginning. Lieutenant Hercom officer said softly, "The signals are clearer now." The star map flickered alive, red points spreading like stains across the edge of known space. Connor's voice was sharp. "Show me." The projection expanded, revealing spectral anomalous pulses of energy that made the map itself flicker and warp. Whole regions went dark, as if the stars themselves had been swallowed. Her crew stared in. Silence. "It's not Gorv, not Swarm," the officer whispered. "Something else. Something bigger." Connor's eyes narrowed. "Signal Admiral Varian. He needs to see this." At the Allied War Chamber, a massive hall carved into the Valyrian flagship, the greatest minds of the galaxy gathered. Human commanders, Valyrian strategists, Illyrian survivors, even reluctant council envoys all stood around the glowing table as the data streamed in. Commander Jacob. Reed limped into the chamber, his armor scarred, his face lined with exhaustion. He had bled on Illyria, but his eyes burned brighter than ever. Dr. Zarax. The insectoid scientist from the Concorde clattered his mandibles as the projection twisted into view. Behold! The anomaly. Gasps rippled. The stars distorted, light bending around something vast and unseen. Reed frowned. It's feeding, he said slowly. Devouring suns. That's why the systems go dark. It doesn't conquer, it consumes. The chamber fell still. Even hardened warlords shifted uneasily. Admiral Varian spoke at last, his voice low, steady. This is not invasion. This is extinction. Across the galaxy, fear spread like wildfire. Worlds that had cheered humanity's victory now trembled. If the swarm was a plague, this new enemy was a black hole with teeth. The council faltered, some demanding surrender before the first blow was struck. Others begged humanity to lead them, but Sarah Connor's reply was the same. Humanity does not bow. We prepare. The Dauntless became a hive of creation. Human engineers and alien scientists worked side by side, sketching weapons no one had ever dared imagine: dark energy cannons, gravity disruptors, starforged shields. Reed oversaw the ground teams pushing their theories into brutal reality. Good enough isn't good enough, he barked. If it doesn't tear a hole in the abyss, it's worthless. On construction yards across Allied space, scaffolds wrapped around massive structures. The bulwark a wall of steel and light, stretching across the stars, piece by piece. Humanity's defiance given shape, whispers echoed on every world. The humans are building something. Something to stop the dark. But even as they labored, the signs grew worse. Stars flickered out one by one. Colonies went silent. Scout ships never returned. Every message carried the same dread. The Shade is coming, on the bridge of the Dauntless. Connor stared at distorted images, her face grim. How much time? Her officer swallowed. Weeks. Maybe less. Connor turned slowly, her voice cold and clear. Then the galaxy has weeks to decide. Stand with us or be consumed. When the Shade came, the galaxy trembled. At the edge of Dominion space, sensors screamed as the void itself bled. Space rippled, light warped, and then it emerged. It was not a fleet. It was not a creature. It was something between shadow and nightmare, stretching across the stars. Tendrils of darkness writhed like living storms, reaching for suns and crushing them into nothing. Every ship in the Allied armada froze. Every crewman stared in terror. Reed gripped the railing of his station, his voice hoarse. How do you fight something that isn't even matter? On her bridge, Sarah Connor's heart pounded. Her crew trembled, but her voice cut like fire. You fight it like we always have. Together. With courage. With fury, humanity will not break here. Not now. The Allied armada moved. Valyrian cruisers lit the dark with shimmering beams. Illyrian fighters darted like sparks against the black. Human warships poured plasma and steel into the abyss. The bulwark ignited, its colossal shields glowing. Casting light across the void, the Shade struck. Tendrils of darkness slammed against the wall, tearing ships apart like paper. Whole fleets vanished in seconds, their screams echoing across coms. The stars dimmed. The void howled, and in the chaos, Sarah Connor stood tall on her bridge. Hold the line, she shouted. Every second we stand, we show them we are not prey. Her crew roared back, their voices shaking the ship. The battle raged. Ships shattered. Debris spiraled. Plasma fire lit the endless dark. The bulwark groaned under the strain, its shields flaring, threatening to collapse. Reed coordinated strikes, his voice a hammer. Focus fire. Look for a pattern. There has to be a weakness. But the Shade was endless, relentless, infinite. The Allied fleet staggered. The bulwark began to fail. Hope wavered. And then, as ships screamed and stars went black, Sarah Connor's eyes locked on the projections. For one moment, her breath caught. She had seen it just for an instant, a ripple inside the Shade. a flaw, a weakness. Her heart thundered. She turned sharply to her crew, her voice trembling but fierce. There. That's it. That's its heart. The galaxy watched in silence as the Dauntless charged forward, spearheading the Allied armada straight into the abyss. Alien leaders whispered in dread and awe. No one else would dare. No one else could, and across the stars, the truth burned brighter than fear. Humanity had found the shadow's weakness and they were going to strike it. The screen cut to black. The stars trembled. The shade loomed across the void. A storm of living darkness stretching from horizon to horizon. Its tendrils writhed like colossal serpents, coiling around suns and tearing them into nothing. It did not speak, but its hunger screamed in every mind that gazed upon it. Against the abyss stood the bulwark humanity's greatest gamble. A wall of steel, light, and courage, built from human genius and alien sacrifice. Towers of cannons glowed across its frame, shields shimmered like auroras, and fleets swarmed at its edges, and at the center of it all, the Dauntless held its place, her hull scarred, her guns blazing. Her commander unyielding, Lieutenant Sarah Connor, stood at her command rail, her face pale but her eyes hard as steel. "This is it," she said, her voice carrying through the bridge. "This is the stand that decides if we live or vanish. Humanity has faced extinction before. Every time, we survived. Today will be no different." Her crew straightened, fear hardening into fire. Humanity fights. They roared. Across the fleet, voices echoed her cry. Valerian admirals whispered awe. Illyrian soldiers clenched their blades. Even the most cynical council leaders, watching from distant safety, felt a chill of respect. Sarah Connor's voice had become more than orders. It had become a beacon. On the ground station within the bulwark, Commander Jacob Reed worked furiously alongside alien scientists. Equations streamed across holoscreens, weapons powered with unstable energy, and systems strained against impossible loads. Reed slammed his fist on the console. "The Shade's core, we saw it. There's a pattern in its movements. If we can sink the fleet's fire, we can break through." Dr. Zrax's mandibles clicked anxiously. "But the timing must be perfect. A fraction too late, and the energy will rebound." Reed's eyes burned. "Then we don't miss. Not today." The Shade struck. Tendrils of darkness lashed against the bulwark, smashing through fleets, ripping ships into shreds of molten debris. Dozens of worlds cried out as their defenders were erased in seconds. The shields of the bulwark flared, dimmed, then flared again. Groaning under the pressure, on the Dauntless, consoles exploded. Sparks raining across the bridge. Port shields down to 20%. Main guns overheating. Connor's jaw clenched, but her voice stayed steady. "Hold. Every second we stand. The galaxy sees that we do not yield." The Allied armada fought back. Human warships roared with plasma fire. Valerian cruisers danced through the dark, their beams slicing tendrils apart. Illyrian fighters dived like arrows, striking weak points with reckless bravery. But the Shade was endless. For every tendril cut, two more grew. For every gap burned, another swallowed the light. The bulwark shook like a dying beast. Its massive frame cracked, its shields buckled, its cannons faltered. Across the galaxy, billions watched in silence, hope hanging by a thread. Then Connor's eyes sharpened. Through the chaos, through the flames and screams, she saw it again. A ripple in the Shade, a flicker where the void bent wrong. Its heart. She seized her come. "Reed, I have the target." "I repeat, I see its heart." Reed's reply was rough, urgent. "Then give us the coordinates." "We'll align the fleet." Data streamed across the network. Holoscreens lit across every ship, targeting systems locking onto a single point deep within the storm. Reed stood tall, his voice carrying through every channel. "This is it. The combined fire of every ship, every cannon, every weapon, all at once. We miss, we die, we hit, we live." The countdown began. Across the bulwark, ships maneuvered, weapons charged, reactors screamed. The galaxy held its breath. The Shade sensed danger. It writhed, its tendrils coiling tighter, its hunger pressing harder. The bulwark cracked, sections collapsing into fire. Entire fleets were swallowed whole. Connor's crew stared at her, sweat dripping, fear choking their throats. "Lieutenant," her officer whispered. "If this fails," she cut him off, her voice fierce. "Then we fall as we always lived, fighting." The countdown hit 0. The galaxy roared. Every cannon, every ship, every weapon fired at once. Beams of light, torrents of plasma, waves of energy ripped across the void and slammed into the Shade's heart. The abyss screamed. The ripple widened, cracks tearing across its black surface. Light burst through, searing the void like dawn breaking a storm. Cheers erupted across the fleet. For one heartbeat. It looked as if the impossible had been achieved. The Shade staggered. It bled, but victory turned to horror. The cracks sealed. The light dimmed. The Shade's scream became laughter, cold and silent. Its tendrils surged with renewed fury, striking harder than before. Entire sectors of the bulwark collapsed. Allied fleets were torn apart in seconds, their wreckage scattering across the void. Reed slammed his fist against the console. "No, it's adapting." Connor's face went pale, her eyes blazing. She gripped the rail, her knuckles white. If that was not enough, then what is? The bulwark burned. The Allied armada faltered. The Shade loomed larger, stronger, hungrier. Billions watching across the stars whispered in terror. And yet, through the chaos, Sarah Connor's voice cut across every channel. Steady and unbroken. There is still one card left to play. Humanity's final gamble. The screen cut to black. The bulwark burned across the void. Shattered fleets drifted as flaming debris. Whole sections of the colossal wall of steel cracked apart. Torn by tendrils of the Shade, Allied ships screamed their last words into the dark before vanishing in bursts of fire. And still, the abyss advanced. The Shade's hunger pressed against every soul. It had swallowed suns, crushed fleets, and now it reached for the very heart of the galaxy. No one had ever stopped it. No one had even survived facing it, and yet, against the abyss. One ship still fought, the Dauntless. On her bridge, Lieutenant Sarah Connor stood with blood on her face and fire in her eyes. The ship groaned under the strain, sparks showered from broken consoles, and her exhausted crew clung to their posts. But her voice cut through the chaos. This is not the end. Humanity does not surrender. Not to Swarm, not to Gorv, not to Shade. Today we show the galaxy what it means to stand. Humanity fights. Her crew roared with her, even as the walls shook around them. In the bulwark's war chamber, Commander Jacob Reed stared at the data streams. His chest burned with fury as the Shade's wound healed again, his black heart pulsing with laughter. "We hit it with everything," he growled. And it wasn't enough. Double quotes Dr. Drax's mandibles clattered in despair. "There is no more energy left to give." Reed's eyes narrowed. "There is one thing left. Us." He slammed his hand on the console and opened a channel 2. "Connor, Sarah, I've run the numbers. The only way to shatter it is a direct overload. One ship, one reactor. One impossible strike." The silence on the line was heavy. Then Connor's voice came, calm, resolute. "Then it will be the Dauntless." Her crew stared at her, shocked. "Lieutenant, if we overload the reactor, there's no way back. This ship, she'll tear herself apart." Connor met their eyes, one by one. "If humanity falls here, there is no way back. Our story ends, and the galaxy dies with us. But if we stand, if we burn brighter than the dark, then humanity's name will never be forgotten. That is worth everything." Silence. And then one by one, her crew nodded. Double quotes. "We stand with you. To the last breath." For humanity, the plan spread across the fleet. Humanity's final gamble. The Dauntless would drive straight into the Shade's heart. her reactor overloaded, her fire tearing open the abyss. Allied ships would clear the path, sacrificing themselves so she could strike. All across the armada, aliens trembled at the thought. No species had ever dared such madness. And yet, when they saw the humans preparing, something stirred inside them. Valyrian admirals raised their hands in salute. Illyrian survivors drew their blades. Even the broken council envoys whispered words they never thought they'd speak. "We will fight with them," the last march began. The Dauntless surged forward, her engines burning brighter than a star. Around her, Valyrian ships darted, Illyrian fighters streaked, human cruisers blazed. Every ship left standing threw itself into the path of the Shade, blasting tendrils apart, holding the line for one final push. Inside the bridge, Connor's voice was steady. "Read. Confirm the coordinates." His reply came, sharp with resolve. "Straight through the center." "Give them hell, Sarah," the Shade shrieked. "Tend to slash tearing allies apart." Valyrian cruisers shattered in elegant arcs of flame. Human frigates split open, their crews roaring battle cries until the very last second. Each loss bought the Dauntless another heartbeat, another step closer. On the bridge, alarms blared, hull integrity down to 30%. Reactor nearing overload. Connor gripped the rail, her knuckles white. Hold her steady. One chance. One strike. At last, they reached it. The Shade's heart loomed, swirling vortex of black energy, pulsing with stolen suns. It roared in fury, its tendrils converging, desperate to crush the intruder. Connor raised her chin. Sweat streaked her face, but her eyes blazed with fire. "This is for every world you devoured. For every life you stole. For humanity. And for the galaxy." She slammed her hand down. Reactor detonate. The Dauntless screamed. Light erupted from her core, brighter than any star. It spread through her hull, through her guns, through her engines, until the entire ship became a blazing spear. She plunged into the Shade's heart, her reactor ripping open reality itself. The abyss shrieked, a sound that tore across galaxies. The tendrils writhed, burned, dissolved. Cracks split across its surface, widening, shattering. And then with one final, blinding roar, the Shade imploded. Silence, the void trembled, then stilled. The stars returned. The bulwark floated among debris, shattered but alive. Across the galaxy, billions stared in awe. The unstoppable darkness had been broken by humanity. On the wreckage of the bulwark, survivors gathered. Valyrian ships limped, Illyrian fighters hovered, human cruisers burned, but still moved. And then a signal pierced the silence. It was Connor's voice. Weak, strained, but alive. "This is Sarah Connor, of the Dauntless. Mission complete. The Shade is gone." Cheers erupted across every channel. Soldiers wept. Civilians cried out in joy. The galaxy roared as one. In the council chamber, alien leaders stood in silence. For centuries, they had mocked humans as fragile, reckless, insignificant. Now they knew the truth. Humanity was apex, not because they were strongest, not because they were most advanced, but because, when the galaxy faced the abyss, it was humanity that stood. Humanity that fought. Humanity that sacrificed everything so that others could live, and that truth could never be erased. Sarah Connor stood among the wreckage, her uniform scorched, her metals twisted. Beside her, Jacob Reed limped forward, bloodied but unbroken. Together, they looked at the stars. "They feared us," Reed said quietly. "Now, they'll never forget us." Sarah's gaze was steady, her voice soft but fierce. "Good. Let them remember. Because humanity doesn't seek conquest. We seek survival. And if survival makes us the galaxy's apex," she turned her eyes to the stars, burning with new dawn, "then so be it." The screen faded to black.